in real time, and I'm glad you're with us. Great show today. Today we have photographer Sarahbeth Maney. She's a Bay Area native and took an iconic photo at this week's Supreme Court confirmation hearings for Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson. An amazing shot. We'll talk with this Bay Area native about that picture, why it went viral and got so popular, and also just about her work as a photographer. Also, Chronicle film critic Mick LaSalle joins us to talk about Sunday's Oscars. It's almost time for Hollywood's biggest night. We'll get his take on some of the movies out this year and his award predictions as well. But first, down to business with ABC 7 News special correspondent Dr. Alok Patel talking with us about the latest COVID-19 headlines, news, and concerns. Hi, Alok. How are you?
Dan, it's good to see you. Happy Friday.
Yes, indeed. Happy Friday to you. Thanks for coming on. A number of things I want to talk with you about. We have seen such an interesting easing of tension everywhere I go, and which is so nice to see. Yet there's part of me, and maybe it's because of what we went through with Delta and then Omicron. Now we've got BA2 to worry about. I know we're in a much different place because of vaccines and boosters. But should we be looking over our shoulder at BA2 still?
Dan, I don't think there's anything wrong with us, local health officials, the federal government looking over our proverbial shoulder, because I think what you're feeling is what a lot of us are feeling. We're feeling the relief. We're feeling that we've earned this moment because of our vaccine-acquired immunity. We've done the right steps. But at the same time, there's a lot of unknowns regarding BA2. We do not suspect that it's going to cause as severe of a surge as previous surges, but we will likely see an uptick in cases. And keeping ourselves cautiously optimistic is what we're going to do to prepare in the event we are proven wrong.
Let's talk a little bit about that potential for a surge. Is that the sort of traditional surge that we saw in the past, or is this sort of surge light that we would expect?
I like that phrase, surge light. That's a Dan Ashley original.
Yes.
You know, if we follow what's happening in other parts of the world, it seems to be varied. If you look at Hong Kong and China, they don't have nearly as much vaccine-acquired immunity in certain populations as we do. Their zero tolerance policy also created a lot less natural immunity also. But then if you look at in Europe, that's very interesting and possibly more concerning, because in the UK, they have a higher percentage of elderly above the age of 65 who have gotten their booster than we do. So we're kind of sitting right in the middle. But I think because of how much vaccine and natural acquired immunity we have, we're in a much better place. We also have better access to antivirals and treatments. But again, BA2 still has that ability to evade some of our antibodies, and some early studies show that it has a growth advantage. So it still has that potential to really grow, rapidly spread across the country and become the dominant strain. We're just waiting to see if it's really going to cause an increase in hospitalizations.
But it does sound like it is a fair amount more contagious or transmissible. Am I correct?
It does, yes. And that has been shown both in the lab setting and in real world data. But again, one thing that everyone needs to understand is that from everything we've seen right now, our vaccines, the vaccines that we've all been recommended to take, that hopefully most of us have, still works incredibly well against Omicron BA2, the subvariant.
You know, that's good to know that what we've had, these vaccines and boosters, are effective. The next question I want to ask you is regarding the vaccines and the booster. Where are we in terms of a fourth booster? I think in terms of time, I might be coming up on about the time frame where I would have taken a fourth booster or could take a fourth booster. Where are we in that process?
A lot of conversation about the fourth booster, Dan, and we will have a better answer in April when the FDA goes ahead and reviews all the data and we see something, because we know that Pfizer submitted to have a booster in those above the age of 65. Moderna submitted to have it above 18, 65, and anyone with underlying medical conditions. I suspect we will have a fourth shot for people with underlying medical conditions. We already have it for those who are immunocompromised, but for individuals above the age of 65, we don't have the data to suggest that healthy young individuals need to get a fourth shot. And remember, a lot of the studies out there that talk about waning immunity, they're only looking at antibodies, which is just one arm of the immune system. The other arm may very well give us continued lifelong protection in some degree. We just have to wait and see what that data really looks like. But it's possible in the next few weeks there'll be a fourth shot approved for certain populations.
But that's interesting. But there may be a situation where only a portion of that booster shot becomes less effective over time, and maybe some of that booster remains effective for a much longer period of time. We just simply don't know. Is that what I hear you say?
Correct. Because remember, at the end of the day, or I should say the beginning of the day, when the vaccines were created, the main goal of the vaccine was to prevent severe illness and death. And that is still what it's doing. So when we talk about the waning protection, that's against just an infection. Even that's a mild infection. We may see an increase of those, but fortunately, the vaccines will still protect the majority of people who have gotten vaccinated against that severe illness, winding up in the hospital, which is what we want to prevent.
Sure, the most serious cases. You know, let's talk a little bit about the psychology, Alok, if you don't mind. You know, I still find it strange. Just the last couple of weeks, we haven't been required to wear our masks in the building moving around unless we're in close proximity with others. I've been here the whole time. I did not work from home, and for a long time it was deserted. There was nobody here, but we still wore masks everywhere. It's still, I still will leave and move to another part of the building and still feel strange not wearing my mask. The instinct is still to grab it. And I should tell you, my brother and his partner were in town who went to a concert the other night that they wanted to attend, and I'm standing cheek by jowl next to people. I wore my mask, and I know we don't have to now, but I wore my mask. Most people were not. A few were. Most people were not. In fact, I performed at a charity concert not long ago. Most people were not wearing their masks. Still makes me a little uncomfortable. Let's talk a little bit about the psychology, what we have adapted to the last 2 years that's hard to give up.
I think there's more awareness, Dan, about infection transmission and airborne viruses, and people are a little bit more aware of the perfect setting where they could potentially catch not only coronavirus, but anything else that might be floating in the air. If you're sitting next to someone in a restaurant or on an airplane who's coughing next to you, you might think, oh my gosh, if I had a barrier, I might be protected against those droplets. I think that's going to last for the limited future of people. And also think about people out there who still are concerned. There are millions of people who are immunocompromised, who have underlying medical conditions, who are not yet ready to take off the mask in certain settings. That's why we have to respect those individual decisions. Even as these mask mandates get lifted and we talk about a new normal, it is a different normal for the individual, depending on where you live, your individual risk, the risk of people in your house, and all of those have to be taken into account.
Yeah, and I have to say, I was very pleased to see Alok at the concert, those couple of concerts. The people who were wearing masks, me included, I didn't get any funny looks. I didn't see anyone else getting any funny looks, even though we were in the minority. People seemed to take it in stride, and it's your personal choice. Nobody had a problem with it.
Absolutely, because in this situation, if you're wearing a mask to protect yourself, that is something that people should respect. We had the opposite situation for the past 2 years where people weren't wearing a mask and they may not have been vaccinated and they potentially could be infectious. And they said, hey, this is my decision. This is my autonomy. But in that latter situation, you potentially are affecting those around you. Dan, in your situation at the concert, you were making a decision for your own health to protect yourself, and people should respect that.
Sure. And also, hey, what if I was infected and didn't know it? I might also be protecting them as well, unbeknownst to me.
Just saying.
Yeah, right, exactly. Let's talk quickly about vaccines for kids under 6 years of age. I know there are a lot of young mothers who are still concerned about the potential exposure to their children, so they may be even more cautious with masks and social distancing even to this day.
When Moderna submitted that data, we all just saw there were headlines across the world about it. It's likely going to take a few weeks for them to put all their data together, submit it to the FDA, and then potentially, maybe in a little bit more than a month, early summer, we will have a shot available for those young kids. What Moderna's early trial showed was that in young kids under the age of 6, they had an antibody response to 2 vaccines that was similar to the antibody response in adults, and that was the end goal of that study. It's called an immunobridging study, where you're just comparing the antibody response. As far as efficacy, that was a little lower, and it was about 40%. But we need to remember 2 things. Number one, efficacy was against any infection, even a mild one. And also, if we compared any 2-dose vaccine schedule in the Omicron surge, that efficacy would be a little lower. And so it's important to take it all into context. But the good news is that we may have a potentially life-saving preventative tool available for kids very soon. I know a lot of parents, especially those who have young ones who have medical conditions, a lot of parents can't wait for that.
Yeah, and I know you do, certainly as a pediatrician, see this all the time. Alok, you are always just chock full of such great information. We appreciate it. Dr. Alok Patel. Thank you, Alok.
Dan, I appreciate you. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, my friend. Talk soon. All right, well, coming up next, the viral photo from Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson's confirmation hearing. Really amazing shot. We're going to talk to the photographer who is from the Bay Area, and we'll show you that photo. Back here in just a moment. And welcome back. You're watching Getting Answers. I'm Dan Ashley, happy to be in with you today. Thanks so much for tuning in. This has been a historic week in Washington, D.C. If you saw some of the confirmation hearings for Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson, they were powerful at times, controversial at times, testy at times, but very, very interesting and a milestone as she becomes the first black woman ever nominated to the Supreme Court. And at this stage, given the way the vote looks, it's almost inevitable that she will be confirmed. That is certainly the expectation. And she gave some powerful testimony and had some powerful remarks during those confirmation hearings. Here's just one example.
I am here standing on the shoulders of generations of Americans who never had anything close to this kind of opportunity. From my grandparents, who had just a grade school education, but instilled in my parents the importance of learning. And my parents, who I've mentioned here many times already, who were the first in their families to get to go to college. So this nomination, against that backdrop, is significant to a lot of people. And I hope that it will bring confidence. It will help inspire people to understand that our courts are like them, that our judges are like them, doing the work, being a part of our government. I think it's very important.
Just one of many powerful and memorable comments from the judge during the confirmation hearing process. And it's become one of the most iconic images from Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson's confirmation hearings. And the photographer is from the Bay Area. That photograph was taken by a Bay Area native, Sarahbeth Maney, working as a photography fellow for the New York Times. Look at this amazing shot. Earlier this week, she captured this photo of Patrick Jackson and Layla Jackson, the husband and daughter of Judge Brown Jackson. That loving look at her during the confirmation hearings from her daughter, isn't that expression remarkable? And her proud husband behind just has gone viral, and it says so much. Sarahbeth is live with us now. Sarahbeth, thank you for coming on. Congratulations on taking such an iconic shot.
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate it. I'm happy to be here.
Oh, it's great to have you here. As we said, a Bay Area native, and wonderful that you were able to take such a special shot. The way Judge Jackson's daughter is looking at her mother is what struck so many people. After she had talked about being a working mother and being very busy and maybe not always getting it right, what did you take away from that photo and that moment?
When I saw Layla look towards her mother and beam at her with this expression of admiration, it really made me think about my relationship with my mother. I'm a mixed race woman. I'm Latina and Black, and my mother raised me to be a very strong-willed woman. And when I saw Layla look at her mother, it made me feel a lot of joy, but it also made me think about her envisioning how much that she can achieve for herself as well.
Yeah, that's well said. And you know what I love about that look? It is such a mother-daughter look, intimate, warm, knowing one another deeply, and the sense of pride in Layla's face was so moving. And one of the things I love about what you do, Sarahbeth, as a still photographer, you know, I'm in the video business, right? And we capture things in a different way, but sometimes that moment in time tells the story in an even more powerful way. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
I have always loved that about still photography. Did you have any idea when you took that photo that you were taking something pretty special, or not really? You're just snapping a bunch of shots and only later did you realize?
I was very intentional about making this image. When I saw the first expression, I didn't take a photo right away. I just sort of smiled myself, and then I continued to watch her and see if she would make that expression again, just hoping that she would. And so I was able to raise my camera and catch that moment. So I tried to be very intentional about that. And as you mentioned, there's so much power in a still image. So for me, whenever I'm making photos, I'm trying to look at all parts of the room, all around me, and trying to figure out what intimate pieces of this scene can I capture to tell a fuller story.
Well, you certainly captured not just that photo, but many great shots from those confirmation hearings. One of the things that is such a great privilege and such a joy for journalists like yourself, every time I'm in one of those situations, I am reminded at what a privilege it is to be right there on the front row of history. Did you have that sense when you're in the room watching something happen, particularly the first black woman ever nominated, but likely going to be confirmed to the U.S. Supreme Court? Were you aware of being in that moment in history?
Definitely. I was aware of how historic and monumental this event was for a lot of people, for the world. And I tried to channel my own experiences and perspectives as a Black woman to try to see how I could portray this story. And I think it was especially significant for photographers because this was my first time as a Black photojournalist being in the room with more than just one other Black photojournalist. So this was a huge moment.
Yeah, describe, before I let you go, Sarahbeth, describe what that moment as a Black woman, a woman of color, meant to you and by extension, all women of color.
For me, the one word that comes to mind of what it felt like to be in there was just a really strong sense of gratitude, especially seeing the reaction to the photo and the reaction to the hearings. I felt like we were being seen and we were being heard. And I know what it is like to create a seat at the table for myself in a space that isn't historically designed for me to be in. And so it was really a powerful feeling.
I can imagine. You certainly had a seat at the table and you captured just an iconic moment, an expression and a moment in time that none of us will ever forget. Congratulations. Well done.
Thank you, Dan.
All right. Well, Sarahbeth Maney, working as a photography fellow for the New York Times, capturing just one remarkable image, but a series of shots she took during that confirmation process. You can check out her work at the New York Times. Again, thank you, Sarahbeth. All right. Well, coming up next, we're going to move on, change gears a little bit, and we will focus on Oscar time, Hollywood's biggest night. San Francisco film critic Mick LaSalle talking Oscar predictions. Stay with us. Okay, if you're watching on Facebook, we sure appreciate your being here. Stay here with us. I'll continue in just a moment. Well, the countdown to Oscar Sunday is underway. ABC 7, of course, your destination, the only place to see all the action. The big show starts at 5 p.m. on Sunday, but you're going to want to tune in early when our coverage begins at 10 a.m. It's going to be a big day on Sunday. Now, to talk about the Oscar contenders and what we can expect is my old friend, and by old, he's not old. I've just known him for a long time. San Francisco Chronicle film critic Mick LaSalle. Hi, Mick. Great to see you as always.
Yeah, it's great to see you too. It's good. It's been a while.
It has been a while. It's exciting time. We've got some great movies out this year. And coming out of the pandemic, people actually went to the theater to see some of these movies at least. What are your thoughts as we go into this Oscar ceremony?
Well, I mean, last year, some of the movies were very good, but they seem like movies you might see on television or something. These movies feel like real, big size movies. And for that reason, they're just a little bit more exciting. So, something like West Side Story or Dune, or I didn't even like Dune that much, but just the grand scale of these movies is kind of encouraging. Feels good now.
It does, doesn't it? And it's a diverse group of selections, both for actors and actresses and also for the movies themselves. Pretty interesting slate of films this year. I haven't seen all of them, but I've seen a number of them.
Yeah, I mean, I would say this is a pretty good list of movies and some good performances. And, the usual thing happens, the wrong ones will win because that's the usual way things happen. But still, it's nice that they got nominated.
Right. What are you looking at in terms of great performances? Denzel Washington had a truly amazing performance. I heard a few people say he was great. I just couldn't finish the movie. I don't know if it, but his performance was fantastic. What other great performances did you see this year?
Well, Benedict Cumberbatch is very good in his movie, and Olivia Colman in The Lost Daughter is good. I don't think the movie's that great, but she's terrific. Javier Bardem is really wonderful in Being the Ricardos. Will Smith, I think, is quite good in King Richard. Penelope Cruz, nobody's expecting her to win, but in Parallel Mothers, she's absolutely wonderful. And Jessica Chastain, of course, is terrific in The Eyes of Tammy Faye.
Will Smith, I haven't seen all of King Richard, but that was a powerful performance, I thought, and a lot to say in that film. Talk a little bit about what you've seen in terms of the kind of movies Hollywood made this year. There were the tentpole movies, the big, blow stuff up movies, but there were also really thoughtful and thought-provoking movies like Coda, for example, and others.
Yeah, Coda and Belfast, I'd say, is in that category, and also too. I mean, it is a blow something up movie, but Don't Look Up. It's like blowing up the world, but it's a pretty thoughtful picture. We're in this weird zone. We're in this period now where it's kind of like right after 9/11, where some of the movies were made before 9/11 and some of the movies were made after 9/11, and it's almost like communications from two different worlds. And so we're in this zone where some of the movies were made before the pandemic, some were made during. I think next year will be all like post-pandemic or during the pandemic. So it's like we're getting communications from two different kinds of mentalities, if that makes any sense. But Coda's a very sweet movie. I think Coda's going to win, actually.
Best Picture.
Yeah, I do.
Oh,
I do. Yeah, well, the reason why is because ever since they changed the way they do the voting, whoever is the front runner loses, because the way they do the voting is with this kind of, it's a ranked choice voting. So let's say if you have something that you really like and the Power of the Dog is supposed to win, you'll make sure, even if you like Power of the Dog, to make that not one of your first choices in a ranked. So people vote strategically, and as a result, the front runners just keep on losing year after year after year. And it doesn't happen that way if there's nothing to go to. But it seems that for some reason, Coda has been the one that people have gravitated towards.
Yeah, you hear a lot about that. And I've got like 10 seconds. Just quick thoughts on the idea of having hosts this year. We've got 3 hosts. The last couple of years we didn't have hosts. I'm a big fan of having a host for the Oscars. What do you think in terms of the show? 10 seconds.
I like having a host. I think it's a bad gig. I mean, being on, you have to make jokes about people who are sitting right in front of you. And if they frown, everybody says, oh, I guess the joke was bad. So it's like getting set up to fail. I think they deserve credit for trying.
Yeah, some people do it better than others, too. All right, we shall see on Sunday. Chronicle film critic Mick LaSalle. Thanks, Mick. Great to see you.
Great to see you.
Okay, again, the Oscars are on Sunday right here on ABC 7. And ABC 7 news anchor Kumasi Aaron is there, and we'll have special coverage for us coming up on our newscast at 4, 5, and 6 today, as well as all weekend long right here on ABC 7 News. It is Oscar time. Tune in for all of that, but stay right here with us. Back in a moment. Okay, if you're watching on Facebook, you are the best. We will wrap things up here in just a moment. Stay with us. All right, that wraps things up for us here. Thank you so much for joining us on this interactive program, Getting Answers. We will be here with you every day at 3 o'clock on air and on live stream, answering your questions in real time. For all of us here, I'm Dan Ashley. We appreciate your time. World News Tonight with David Muir is next. We'll see you next at 4, 5, 6, and then 11. Bye for now.